Well, hey, Vision. Hey, it's good to see you this morning as we kick off this just a short two-part series. And whether you're watching in person or if you're watching on Facebook Live, I hope this can be highly impactful for you. This series was actually birthed out of conversations I've had in the last couple of months and last year, or conversations I've heard other people having about walking with God. And specifically, I think back to one conversation I heard about from one of our volunteers, and she came and spoke to me, and she said, man, it was interesting. I was talking in the Viz Kids lobby, where all our kids are. And she said, I was talking to a mama who was picking up her son, and we were talking about, baptism coming up and different things for kids. And this volunteer had said to the mama, said, so when you're at home this week, really try to pour into your son this week about God, about maybe even talk about baptism or how to grow in your walk. And the mom got this look in her eyes, and I appreciate she was authentic enough that she said to the volunteer, she said, well, really, I have a tough enough time myself spending time with God. In fact, and she was kind of embarrassed. She's like, I'm not real good at reading my Bible or spending time with God, but I'll try to do that with my child. But you could tell as she walked off, there was both a combination of kind of maybe embarrassment is too strong, maybe like a disappointment in herself, but also an authenticity of, can somebody help me with that? I want to be able to lead my child or with my family, or even as a single or a young adult or an older adult. I want to be better at spending time with God. And I know, like, we're in church, we all spent time with God this week, right? Like lots of time and tons of time in our Bible, tons of time praying. We did all the right things. To get in church and you sit there and you think, oh man, I can't remember where my Bible's at. Man, I hadn't prayed like at all this week, except that time I was really mad and just said, God, help me with that. And I think back and say, God, did I really spend any time with you this week? And let alone, I look out and see parents. I'm like, did they spend any time with their kids pointing them to Christ this week? Because if you're like me, there was a lot of other things that happen in your week. There's a lot of things that take your time, and there's people getting sick, and there's errands to run, and there's shopping to be done, and there's clothes to be cleaned, and there's all these things that can happen that can try to push us away from spending time with God. So this 2-week series, we're calling it The Table, and it really is built around this concept that God wants to come and pull up a chair across from you at the table. He's not going to force you. In fact, he's not going to beg you, but he is, in his subtle way, he's going to ask you and say, would you come and spend some time with me at the table? Whether it's a literal table or maybe it's figurative. And I'll unpack that today, because this is not about a report card that you say next Sunday, Pastor Matt, I did it. I checked off the things you said to check off, and I sat at that table, and I forced myself to read, and I forced myself to pray, and I fell asleep, and then I woke up, and I spent time at the table with God, Pastor Matt. I did it. And if you're like me, I see you don't need anything else just to check off in life. Okay, you got enough check-offs. Get the kids to school, get the things washed, take care of this, feed the dogs. They forgot to feed the dogs, got to feed the dogs, and you're doing all these check-offs to get to the end of the day. And honestly, a lot of the check-offs have to happen. But this type of experience, whether it's you at the table with God, or next week I'm going to talk about even coming to the table with other people to spend time with God, this type of environment, it fuels us. It should not take away from us. It should not be a drain on us, but it should be something that we can actually grow to look forward to, and it can become a habit in our life, so that when you're discouraged or you're trying to figure out things, you got questions, you got concerns, you know that God is waiting for you at the table. So I'm going to unpack a couple different people from the Bible today. I'm going to give you on your takeaway card some other people to dig into. And then at the end, after our last song today, I'm going to give you a challenge. And I'm hoping that you would join me in the challenge. And also in today's message, I'm going to do something in here that I'm not sure if we've ever done before. So make sure you keep an eye out. And it makes me a little bit nervous, but it's okay. It's worth it. We'll get there in a little bit. But let me start out talking about a couple different people in the Bible. The first one is this lady Mary. And I know there's a lot of different Marys, but this Mary, she was a sister to Martha, and her brother was Lazarus. So if you know anything about their story, as we pick up in the book of John, what had just happened is the brother Lazarus was brought back from the dead. Now, you read the Bible a lot. Sometimes you hear stories a lot. You get almost kind of callous to like what really happened, but I mean, you imagine, I mean, if you're coming to church now and like, let's say these two ladies there and they got Stacy in their life and like Stacy was brought back from the dead and you got these two ladies and they know Stacy, they are forever changed. Oh my goodness. That is how this lady Mary felt about this guy, Jesus. So we pick up this story and they're in a home and there's some people in the home that don't feel that way about Jesus. There's some people in there that don't like Jesus. There's some people that are kind of bored with Jesus. There's some people that are trying to learn from Jesus. And there's Mary, and she's got a chance to come to the table and connect with God. So let's look at this story here. In John chapter 12, we got it on the screen, or on your takeaway card, on the Bible app, under events, you got Vision Church. It says here, 6 days before the Passover. So when you think in terms of timeline, this is the Saturday before the Friday when Jesus is going to die. That literally the next day is what we call Palm Sunday, when Jesus came into Jerusalem and people were bowing down to him. This is the day before that. This is Saturday. It says 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus, the guy who had been raised from the dead, where Lazarus lived. So Jesus, he's got a reputation in this town. He has done amazing things in this town. It says here a dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Martha, the other sister, she served, while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table with him. You imagine the people that would want to talk to Lazarus. They'd be like, okay, where's Stacy at? Man, were you really dead? What'd you see? What'd you experience? I mean, what is it like to be back from the dead? I mean, imagine the atmosphere in that place. Like, oh man, this guy Jesus does stuff like that. What can he do for me? What can he do in my life? Okay, we continue. It says, so Lazarus was at the table, and in verse 3 it says, Mary, she took a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume. She poured it on Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair. You're like, oh, that's pretty nice. That's neat. It says that the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. You're like, oh, that's pretty special. You know, she went by Target and got a little, $10 thing of perfume and poured it out. That's so sweet. No. This is special perfume. This is a special sacrifice. It took something extraordinary for her to get in this moment when she would do this. Listen to this. One of the disciples, Judas Iscariot. Has anybody here heard of Judas? Okay? Because in this story, they don't know yet about Judas. We know about Judas. This is the guy who goes off on this other path. You say, I never want to go on that path. The interesting thing is Judas was at the table too. Judas was right there with the Son of God, and yet he missed him. Judas, who was later to betray Jesus, objected, said, wait a second, why wasn't this perfume sold and given to the poor? I mean, doesn't he sound high and mighty? Doesn't he sound like the kind of guy that maybe if you're just coming back to church now, he's the kind of guy you didn't want to see in church. He was the guy who said, okay, did you read your Bible this week? Did you spend time in prayer on your knees this week? Tell me, did you? Because I did. I spent all kind of time with God this week. Actually, I walked with him all week long. I was with him every minute of every day. And you're like, I don't want to sit next to that guy at church. I don't want to talk to that guy because if anything, compared to him or exposed by him, I don't want to be exposed as a person that really is just kind of trying to figure out this walk with God. And yet they had no idea that Judas really was the one who was not truly spending any time with God. Okay. So he sounds, really nice. The money, it could have been used for the poor. In fact, he says, it was worth a year's wages. This wasn't $10 from Target. This was, let's be conservative, this was $30,000. This was in Gaston County, the average income, $30,000 or $40,000. That Mary came in and had something. You imagine walk around town with something worth $30,000 and you come into Jesus' presence at the table wondering, can I even get close to him? Can I be near him? And yes, you're allowed close to him. And yes, you pour out something that valuable. I'd say, why? Well, I told you why. She saw what happened in Lazarus. She sees Jesus somehow in the measure of eternity, not in the measure of the moment. And she says, I have to do something incredible, immeasurable, memorable in his presence. It says in verse 6, He, Judas, did not say this because he cared about the poor, because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. And Jesus immediately comes to Mary's defense and says, hey, you leave her alone. So make sure you guys in here understand, you feel somebody or Satan speaking in your ear or some type of words in your ear saying, you're not worth it, you're nothing compared to them. Jesus comes to your defense. He says, wait a second, leave him alone. Leave her alone. They're pursuing me. Leave them alone. It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. And I wonder if Judas or some of the others is like, your burial? Man, you're like 33 years old. What do you mean your burial? How is this going to be useful in decades from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? You know, they didn't remember, they didn't realize it was Saturday before Friday, that his burial was coming. And somehow Mary, don't miss this, Mary had gotten some type of poke from God the Father, that said something's coming, something's happening, you got to get to the table. Get to the table, and if you get there and do this, you will be forever changed. And she did. And she dumped out something that people said, why did you possibly do that? She said, I'm just being obedient. I'm, I guess, preparing him for his burial. I don't really know what that means. Well, 6 days later, they sure did. That's what happens at the table. Now, the second table, I love this story. Me and Meg, my wife, we love this so much that, in fact, we named someone in our family out of this story. Because this story that comes in Luke 24, this story happened on the Sunday, 8 days later. So Friday had come and Jesus died. Saturday, the next Saturday had come and Jesus was dead and presumed to be gone. And then the next day, what we call Easter, is when Jesus rose from the dead. That's the day when the ladies went to the tomb and found it empty. That's the day when the other disciples ran to the tomb and said, what's going on? He's not here. And there's confusion. There's like a hint of optimism. Have you ever had that where you think, God, are you really doing something here? Could it be? And they're kind of like, I don't know. And all these people that had been a part of seeing Jesus die are now scattering throughout the town, and a couple guys are walking out of the town, and they're heading to a village. Let's pick it up. It says that same day, that Sunday of the empty tomb, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus. Oh, man, look at that. And it was so cool that with that name, and let me tell you this, me and Meg are not like super spiritual. You're like, you're pastor, Matt, you're pastor. No. We are not like the people that have like all the names memorized and all the meanings of the names memorized and all the magnets of the names on the... Okay, I'm driving home one day from years back at old VBS. You guys ever did that? Vacation Bible School. I'm driving home, and Charles Stanley happened to be on. I flipped through it, and he said, and let me talk to you about Emmaus. And at that time, me and Meg, she was pregnant, we're praying about what to name our kid, and it was like God just hit me. And this young man who was just up here on the stage, at that moment, he got his name, driving home, and I said, Emmaus. So that he will forever have a chance to tell people where his name came from, and this is it, Luke 24. It says, on that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They're talking with each other about everything that happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself, really, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. Now, I wonder, how many times in our life that Jesus himself is coming up alongside of us and we don't even recognize him? How many times at your table is he sitting there and you don't notice him? And I don't notice him. And I get too busy and I walk past the table and I go on with life. I go on with the day. I go on with the thing. I'm watching ESPN.com instead of closing it and spending time at the table with him. And I'm not crashing on those other things, those ESPNs and those other books and those other things, those newspapers, whatever. Those are fine. But I wonder how many times Jesus literally like comes up to us at the table or in your truck or on your walk or your whatever, and he just kind of pokes you and says, will you recognize me? Will you pay attention? I'm right here with you if you will pay attention, if you will spend some time with me. These guys didn't recognize him, but it's okay. The story goes on. It says, they keep on walking, they're going with him, and Jesus, unrecognizing them, is telling them again about all these things in the Bible that had led up to the death of the Messiah. Again, they don't know it's him, but they're taking it in and saying, man, this is amazing. Pick up verse 28. It says, as these two guys, approached the village to which they're going, Jesus, he kind of was walking with them. He's like, okay, guys, well, I'll see you. And he kind of continues on like he's going to go on there. And they said, this is such a pivotal moment. They look at him and said, why don't you hang with us? Why don't you come with us? Literally, they were saying, why don't you come to our table? Why don't you come and spend some time with us? And this is your pivotal moment too. That you have that moment. Maybe you feel that prompting. Maybe tomorrow morning you get up and you say, now Pastor Matt, he challenged us to do the Philippians plan. I'll unpack that later today. And you say, okay, Pastor Matt said to try that, but oh man, I don't know about reading today. I don't think I will today or in this moment. And it's literally like you're in that moment saying, Jesus, okay, just go on. Or saying, hey, come and hang out with me for 5 minutes. Come and hang out at my table. And these guys, wisely, they made the right choice. They urged him strongly, saying, stay with us, for it's nearly evening. The day's almost over. So Jesus went in to stay with them. Well, when he was at the table with them, he took bread. He gave thanks. He broke it with them. He began to give it to them. Woo, then it all changes. Okay, say, it all changes. Okay, right here, it all changes. Because in this moment, their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. Remember, this isn't like weeks before that when tons of people were recognizing him. He's all around town. This is 2 days after he died. They recognized him at their table. And then he disappears from their sight. Jesus, why you do that? Yeah, Jesus, he's mysterious. He's got his ways. And in this moment, he gave them this gift of saying, I'm alive. Poof, and now I'm gone. Well, if you want to read the rest of that story this week, you jump into Luke 24, and they hightail it back to Jerusalem. They're telling people, we saw him. We walked with him. It was amazing. He is alive, like those ladies said, like we heard. He is alive and real, and he was at our table. Understand, he's at your table too. He's at my table too. He's waiting on us. Now, on your takeaway card, you'll see some other places you can dig into this week if you choose, where David, in Psalm 69, he spent some time at the table. And this one with David, if you're ever in a spot where you need to cry out to God and say, God, help, please help me. Where are you at, God? I need you at my table. That's David in Psalm 69. In 1 Kings 19, this is Elijah. He went through the highs, and now he was in the lows. And if you've ever been in the lows, like so low where Elijah would say, God, just take my life. I can't go on, God. I can't go on. And he met not at a literal table, but a figurative table. He met with God. In chapter 6 of the book of Daniel, Daniel's in a spot where he is facing intense pressure. People are literally saying to him, you can't go to the table anymore. For a month, there's no table. You only pray to the king. You don't pray to your God. If you go to your table, you die. Say, ooh, that's some dedication. Daniel knew there was something waiting for him at that table. And the last one, in Acts 24, this guy Paul, he spent time at his table. Well, he's under trial, and this governor Felix says to him, okay, so tell me about this Jesus. And Paul does a little bit, and Felix says, wait. Why don't you come back later when it's more convenient for me? When I'm more ready to hear that, I'm not ready for that right now. And we never hear of Felix again. So you got to think, is that me? Am I saying, God, just kind of come back when it's more convenient? When I got the job thing figured out, when I got the college thing figured out, when the kids are out of the house, come back then when it's more convenient. And you look and you say, God, don't come to my table right now. Don't do that. Okay, I got some table qualities for us to strive for. If you're going to come to the table and you want to meet God like Mary did, like those travelers did, some things I found in, 20, 25 years of walking with God. I don't have it figured out, but here's some things that stand out to me in terms of qualities to meet God at the table. The first one is hunger. So say hunger. Hunger. Okay, hunger, you're like, sure, man, I've been hungry. I'm not talking about food hunger. I'm talking about that you come to your table with a hunger to find God. You come to your table saying, God, I'm not doing this because Pastor Matt said so or my wife said so or because I'm a teenager and I guess I'm supposed to. No, God, I'm coming to the table with a hunger to hear from you, to experience you. I want that. And God wants it too. I promise you. Second word is humility. Say humility. Humility. But if you come to the table and you're like, okay, God, yeah, I know this passage. I mean, I've read Philippians before, God, okay? I know that. And in terms of praying, it's been a pretty good week. So, God, here's just a couple things I need, but no. When there's pride mixed in, the book of Proverbs constantly says that pride goes before the fall. Honestly, pride also goes before the table. So, no, you can't come to the table with pride. There must be humility when you come to the table. Number 3 is teachability. So, say teachability. Teachability. You know, teachability is such a huge thing in our society these days, especially when I talk to teenagers or young adults. And if I don't see teachability, for me, honestly, I'm kind of like, little hands off. Little hands off. When I see teachability, I'm like, really? You're willing to learn? Not just from me, but others? Learn from God? Man, that opens you up for opportunity. If you're not teachable and you sit down to read and God says, okay, well, what about this challenge in your life? He doesn't use challenge. He says, what about that sin in your life? Say, I don't want to think about that sin. What you're saying is, I'm not teachable. You're not teachable. Honestly, God's kind of pushing that chair back. He said, well, let's try again later when you're a little more teachable. Number 4, authenticity. So say authenticity. Authenticity. Okay, has anybody here ever yelled at God? That's okay. God wants you to be real. God doesn't want you to come to the table and say, God, the potential of having cancer, that's a bummer. God, that person that moved away and I miss them, yeah, I'll get over it. No, you come to the table and say, God, the cancer potential of it is scaring me. God, you let that person die. Why'd you do that? Why? And it's okay to talk to God like that. God wants your authenticity, especially if you come in there saying, God, my hands are stained. I am messed up with sin, with error in my life. Will you help me with that? God says, that type of authenticity, I could work with that. Number 5, discipline. So say discipline. Discipline. You're like, discipline. Man, that word keeps coming up every couple of weeks in here. It's just part of the walk. It's part of our journey. That you can't stumble into table time with God. You get to the end of the week and say, oh man, I went to table one time. Well, you're going to get about one table worth of blessing, honestly. If you have the discipline to spend time with God with some type of pattern to it of daily or every other day or even 4 days this week or 2 days this week, some discipline to get there, God will honor that discipline. Now, as a balance to that, we got joy. So say joy. Joy. Because if you come to that table and you're like dragging your feet and you're like, oh my goodness, 15 more minutes, I got to sit at the table. Oh, I got to read Philippians. Really, Pastor Matt? You're making us read this thing about joy? Or you come to the table and you say, God, authenticity, God, I'm having a tough time coming to the table right now. I'm tired. I'm distracted. I got a lot on my mind. God, I'm not even sure if I feel like doing this right now, but there's something inside of me that believes you've got something for me. This joy, it's kind of like a slash expectancy. That you sit down with a joy saying, God, you can give me something that when I walk away from this table, I'll be different. I expect that, God. I'm asking you for that. And then the 7th one is application. So say application. Application. Because, you hear me talk all the time about that can of paint out in your garage, and your garage still isn't painted. And like, hey, what's good with the paint? It's not any good till you open up the can and you apply it to the walls. So you could spend the best time with God. You could be crying at that table. Oh, God, you're teaching me stuff at this table. I can't wait to change and have my temper under control today. And you get in the car and drive to work and you're cussing somebody a minute later. You're like, where's the application? I don't want any application. God says, okay, well, you're going to get out of this what you put into it. Said if you're not going to apply it, you're not getting your most out of your time at the table. Well, what are some things you might do at the table? And again, this is either the literal table or your figurative table, because I love Tommy Lewis, plays in our band. His table a lot of times is in his truck. I love it. He goes out to his truck, he shuts down the world, and he prays out there. He said, Matt, there's some days I got my hands up, I'm talking to God in my truck. Hey, that's great. Maybe your table is at McDonald's. Maybe your table is at work before you punch in. Maybe your table is somewhere else that people don't even know about. It's a closet. It's a whatever. So I'm talking figuratively about when you come to the table, well, a big part is reading the Word. Reading the Bible, getting to God's Word. I recommend the New International Version. I think it's a good balance of being current, but also being very accurate. There's a lot of different translations. That's the one I go for, or New American Standard. A couple of those that are I think very beneficial. Dig into that Word. In terms of how you find what to read, okay, maybe you go to the Bible app. You open it up, man. I love hanging out with Scott Mann. He's always telling me, I'm reading this reading plan about this, about being a man of God, or leading my family, or dealing with sin. And I'm like, cool, man, I need to get in there and find that one. Get on the Bible app. Find your reading plan. Maybe you get into something like a Jesus Calling book. My wife, Meg, she loves this. She pops that up, reads this book, whether it's electronic or in a copy, goes from there to her Bible, pulls out those scriptures. You can go to Lifeway. There are some cool tools at Lifeway. We did this one years ago with our kids. They're like playing cards, and there's 50 cards in there with little snippets of stories from the Bible. We'd pull them out at dinner, or you'd pull them out on your own, and it's so neat sometimes. People say, Matt, almost embarrassing. They're like, Matt, the little tools I use for my kids, man, I'm learning all kind of stuff. Hey, that's great. Don't be embarrassed by that. Take that tool and let it be that catalyst in your time at the table. Okay, another thing you can do is you can listen. Anybody listen to the Bible, like on your phone, on your radio? You get on the Bible app, you pop it on there, and many of those translations, you just hit play, and you can listen to it. My friend Kevin Collick in here, he says all the time, he'll be reading something on his own, and then when he's driving to work, he'll put it on there. A couple times, it'll play through, and he'll listen to it, and it'll soak into him God's Word. Another thing you can do at the table, of course, is you can pray. Simply a conversation with God. And if you want some more help to really unpack that, go on our website and find our Starting Point series. And in that series, one of my messages, I unpacked prayer and went through the acrostic of ACTS. So there's adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and supplication. That is a pattern I use in my life to talk to God, to have a conversation with God at the table. And again, my table a lot of times, it's my neighborhood. A couple people here live in my neighborhood. You'll see me walk around my neighborhood. You know I'm at the table. I'm talking to God. That's my prayer time. I'm praying for Doug Howell and his family. That's the benefit of living in the pastor's neighborhood. You get prayed for a lot. Well, the problem is you get seen by the pastor a lot, so you never know. Just saying. Okay. Another thing you can do at the table, maybe listening or singing the music. Maybe that's your way to connect with God, to get some music in you, to sing that, come to the altar. And you're singing it, you're listening to it. Oh, it just like brings you closer to God. Listening or watching sermons online, whether it's vision sermons or other that, if you need some recommendations, I can tell you 10 different pastors that I love and I listen to. Takes me into God's presence. Okay, how about watching something spiritual? We got Right Now Media. You say, man, Right Now? What's that? That is literally like the Netflix of Christian videos. And a church has a membership to it that you can use for free. They tell us at Right Now, they say, pass this on to anybody in your church. So you go to our website, or you put on your connection card, Right Now Media, or go to our website, send us an email. We'll give you a free link to get Right Now Media and watch videos, teachings, kids' videos, all that kind of stuff. The other one, which I've just been trying lately, is this PureFlix site. Now, we got a show we're watching on there. I can't tell you about it yet because we're actually going to take some ideas from it this fall and into Christmas about this show we're watching. And I love it because we'll sit down with our family, we'll watch a show, and we'll have conversations after, and it's almost humorous because we get done, and the kids are like, oh, okay, now it's like, processing time. Let's talk about the show, Mom and Dad. But the reality is the five of us are sitting around talking about a spiritual show we just watched and truly the messages God has in there for us through that show. Some other ways you come to the table, maybe it's serving. You say, that's just one of the things I love doing is serving people, and that's how I get closer to God. Maybe it's getting outdoors. Anybody here like doing that? Like going walking outdoors and saying, I got to get outside. I got to get away from screens. I got to get away from people. I'm going walking outdoors. That's where my table is. And then also, how about having spiritual conversations? Being intentional in your week to talk with people about more than sports and the weather and the politics, but taking it to a depth lower and having spiritual conversations. And I was talking to my friend Kevin Collick again about this week, and he said, Matt, one of the best things I encourage people to do is find things you like doing and involve God in it. That really, you like getting outdoors? Okay, then get outdoors, spend time with God. You like getting on a boat? Man, then you go and get on a boat, you spend time with God. You have something you like mowing the grass? Then man, pop some in your ears. Listen to some music. Listen to a message. Go mow grass with God, okay? I mean, you find things you like to do, and it'll move you closer to God. So my question for you guys then is, what are ways that you personally connect with God? I think this is where we as like a body help each other with ideas we have about how we spend time with God. So here's my challenge. And this always makes me nervous, but we're going to have open mic for a minute. In fact, Tabitha and Mitchell are going to come walk around here. And if you could, in 30 seconds or less, tell us your name and tell us one way that you like connecting with God. I'd love to hear from some people. So Mitchell, you walk on up. Tabitha, you walk on up. And I will volunteer Scott Mann to start us off because he's great at stuff like this. So Scott, step up and just tell us in 30 seconds or less, or even just one statement, how you like to spend time with God.
Well, I like to start my day with God. A lot of times I'll mutter through getting the kids off to school or whatever, get ready for work, and then I'm like, okay, I need to center myself. So I'll sit down and the Bible, those plans, the reading plans, things like that. I always find something that's applicable to me and get through that. In the evenings before bedtime, I like to sit down with the kids, and the Bible app has some stuff there right now. Media has some stuff there. We do that as well. And then my last thing, if I'm driving to work, my radio channel is almost always on 106.9 or something. I'll give a little plug there for the radio station. But I have to constantly through my day like keep God in front of me to stay connected, stay abiding with Him.
Excellent. Thank you. Somebody else. It can be short. It can be a statement or two. How you spend time with God. How about somebody over here? Oh, what you have to share could be beneficial for somebody else. What do you got? Somebody over here. Oh, there we go. We got a hand over there. Excellent. Thank you, Courtney.
Courtney Lee, and I only listen to worship music in the car, so I don't know anything that's new. Mm-hmm. But also, I don't allow myself to scroll Facebook in the morning until I've done my Bible reading.
Very good. I appreciate that. Great. Excellent. Okay, somebody else. How you spend time with God? It doesn't have to be Nehemiah. Great. Here you go, right there.
Morning, everyone. I'm Nehemiah. First thing I do is on my drive to work, I talk to God. Literally, like if you saw me, I look like a crazy person. Just talking. And then at the end of the day, at the end of the night, me and my wife, we get into the Bible, literally old school paper and ink. And then I end my reading with Jesus Calling, like Meg. And I do that at the end of the day because it puts everything into perspective, whether your day was good or bad. Once you read that last passage, you feel at ease and you could sleep better. Mm-hmm. So that's what I do.
Very good. Thanks, Nehemiah. A couple more. Love to hear from you. Michael, you got something?
Michael Walker. Usually, first thing in the morning when I take off for work, it's like a 45-minute drive. So I'll start off by listening to the music from 106.9 also. And I have time to listen to maybe, Walking with the Family, Focus on the Family. I'll listen to that. But also, I love it in the evening sometimes. I get to sit down at my table and I have a jigsaw puzzle. Most times I'll be listening to my Christian music, worshiping and working the puzzle, but I also have Blake sometimes there with me, and we'll be singing and dancing at the same time. But it's my time to honor God when we do that. So
that's great. Thank you, Michael. Yes, Tiara.
I'm Tiara. I listen to Casting Crowns on Pandora while I'm cleaning.
Great. Excellent. Excellent. A couple more. We'd love to hear from you. Anything big or small, something you do to connect with God. Anybody else over here somewhere? What you share might be beneficial for somebody else.
Right here. I was going to suggest a student or a child that might
Great.
be here.
My name is Peyton Jacobs, and during the week, I connect with God by going to Bible Club on Wednesday. I'm actually the president, so I get lessons from Sunday's worshiping time to go and spread word at school.
That is so great. Ooh, let's have a hand for that. Serious. I love it. I love it. Okay, got one over here. All right, Dale.
Hey, I'm Dale. I usually go in the morning when I travel. I travel quite a bit, and traffic ain't nice out there, so I try to shut everything out and just talk to God and help Him. He helps me stay calm and not hit a lot of people out there.
Very good, Dale. All right. Get a couple more. We got time. Somebody else over here. Come on. God's poking you to stand up. All right, Dave.
I'm not really a morning person, but in the morning I like to read Rick Warren's Daily Hope. I get in my email.
Very
It's
good.
a good one. I love driving and just cranking up Christian music.
Absolutely.
Jamming out. And I know you talk about the paper Bible, but I love my Bible plans because
Right.
I don't have to skip around. I know what I'm reading.
It's great.
having
Excellent.
a plan.
Find what works for you. Definitely. All right, how about one more? Oh, yeah, Sandra right over here. Great. Mitch is coming your way.
I'm Sandra McPherson, and I'm an avid reader,
Yes.
and I have a Kindle that goes with me everywhere. I have found recently that reading Christian books, and I just kind of fell into them, but
Yes.
opened your eyes to a lot of things.
Excellent. All right. Hey, let's have a hand for everybody who shared. That's really great. Thank you. Okay, so you think about those qualities we went through, those 7 qualities. And I encourage you this week and I'll give you a reading challenge after the song. But this week, if you want to dig into this some more and read about those people we talked about David and Elijah and Daniel, you look at those qualities, they came to the table. They weren't perfect, but they came to the table with those qualities. Those qualities of humility, of expectancy, of joy, of discipline. They had those qualities. And most of all, Jesus had those qualities. You say, well, man, Jesus didn't need that. He didn't need time at the table. Yes, he absolutely did. He came to the table to meet with his heavenly Father. I mean, look at those 7. He came to the table with hunger and with teachability. Say, Father, you got some big stuff I got to carry. Father, what's coming up in the next week or two, I'm going to have to carry a cross and die. At times, even, you see this, Jesus, this teachability, authenticity. Remember when Jesus said, Father, if you could take this away, take it away. So it's okay for you to be authentic. Talk to God that way. Jesus had that discipline, the joy. When you read, it says that for the joy set before him, Jesus endured the cross. He came to the table, and hey, how about number 7, that application? Jesus didn't do all those things, then just kind of leave it at the table and then just go and live his life. He applied it for your sake, for my sake, so that you could sit at the table and you could lead your boys, and you could lead grandkids, and you could lead family, and you could lead friends in a way that they can also come to the table and be changed.